So now let's see how to add a color by using HSLA, which is again hue, saturation, and lightness, and alpha. So it's pretty much the same. And style equal to double quotes and color HSLA. So hue should be a value. It should not be a percentage. It should always remain as a value between 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, doesn't matter. But SL can be percentage or value, doesn't matter. But A should be a value or percentage between 0 to 100. Remember, H should always remain as a value. The remaining, it can be percentage or value, it doesn't matter. And the value should be like between 0 to 100, and percentage should be 0 to 100 for all HS and LA. So try to give the alpha value like 0 to 1, because it's just for the alpha. If you give like 50 or 60, it will be like darker color, which is heading towards the black. But you can actually give value for A as well between 0 to 100. But if you like give more the value, it will turn more the black. So try to give lighter value to get the lighter colors, like between 0 to 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is so I'm going to give a title for my understanding as well. So this is HSLA, which means hue, saturation, lightness, and alpha. Okay, so what we have learned is H should be a value always between 0 to 100, and S, L, oh, I've given like 3 more values. Oh my god. Okay, so it should be like only 2 values. So what I'm trying to say here is H should always be a value. It cannot be a percentage. It can be like 0 to 100, and S, L, and A could be a value or percentage 0 to 100. What is advised is, if you're using a A, better it should remain between 0 to 1, because more the number of A is, it will get blacker. Okay, let's go. Let's copy it and paste it, paste it, paste it, paste it. Okay, now we can also use it as a percentage, that doesn't matter. And we can use like 56 or 66. More the hue, it will get more different colors. Doesn't matter whether this is a percentage or value, but hue should always be a value. These 3 can be percentage or value, doesn't matter. Okay, I'm gonna check it. Right? Okay. So this is the HSA, and okay, something is wrong. Okay, I'm gonna like copy it and paste it on a new file. New tab. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn this into a HTML file. I'm gonna add the body right now. I want to paste here what I want to paste. So now let's save this. Let's name it as rainbows.htm. You can use htm or html, both are same. Okay, you can see the colors. So what I've done is I've named HSLA, and the name absolute beginners coding. For if you give the H as 1, then it will be black, nothing happens. Then the second one is if you give the H1 and if you change the percentages, so actually we can see some results like the pink one here. If you change the HSLA again to some different colors, it remains as black because it doesn't give any change at all. But if I give the percentage, if I change the percentage, I can actually see the change. So we should know the values, guys, for changing the hue, because if it is staying in black, that doesn't mean it didn't work. It's actually working. The result is the black. But I want to change the H between 0 to 10. Only then it will work, I guess. So the H should be like always between 0 to 10, I guess. So let's save it. Let's open it. Oh, even still it is same. Or in HSLA the percentage only works, I guess so, because this is a value, right? It remained black. Okay, so yes, actually H should be value and S and L A should always be in percentage if it is HSLA. Okay, if it is like RGBA, then RGB could be percentage or value. A should be separated from RGB, because if RGB is percentage and A is a value, doesn't matter. If RGB is a value and A is a percentage, doesn't matter. If everything is a percentage, everything is a value, doesn't matter. But in HSLA, H, which is hue, should always be a value, and SL A should also should be a value. I mean, should be a percentage. H only should be a value. S, L, and A should always be a percentage. Now let's change this to a percentage. And A could be percentage or value, doesn't matter. I'm talking about S and L. Okay, I think we can see the changes right now. Okay, let's go. Okay, now we can see the changes, right? So what we have learned is in HSLA, H should always be a value. It could be like between 0 to 100. SL should be a percentage. A could be a value or percentage, doesn't matter. Okay, this is what we have learned. So we have got some different colors right there. So you can see that H is a percentage. I mean, H is not a percentage. H should always be a value. S and L is a percentage and A is a value. We got the result. H should always be a value. S and L is always a percentage. And let us see, like, if it is not a percentage, we are going to get a value. If it is a percentage, A is also a percentage. If we are getting value, A is not a percentage, we are getting the result. A can be a result or value. That doesn't matter. H should always be a value between 0 to 100. A is also should be 0 to 100, but advised to be in 0 to 1. But the real question is, if S and A is a value, it will not work. Yes, it should always be a percentage. Because we've already tried it, right? It didn't work. So A doesn't matter. It can be a value or it can be a percentage. H, it should always be a value. S and L should always be a percentage. Let's see it. So look, it should always be a percentage. Even here we got an value, even though A is not a percentage. And even here we got a value when A is a percentage. But H should always be a value, it shouldn't be a percentage. And S and L should always be a percentage, it shouldn't be a value. What happens if I change the H as a percentage? We will not get an answer. And what happens if I change the S and L to a value? We will not get the answer. Look, both are black, which means they are in default color and it didn't work. So H shouldn't be in a percentage and H and S should always be in percentage. So in simple words, HSLA, H should always remain as value. S and L should always remain as percentage. A, it could be a value, it could be a percentage, no one cares. Wow, that's actually nice. I don't know, like, you guys are learning from me or not, but I'm learning a lot of things from myself by experimenting all this thing. Great, let's move on. Okay, so next, what's the next to learn? So now let's see a quick recap, like how to change colors in HTML. By name, which is like this. Okay, this is how to change by name. Okay. Now let's see by hex. It's similar to the same. I mean, we should not type hex. We should directly write the value like ff2211, or it can be anything, guys, but you should exactly know the value. So this is how to change by hex by RGB now. What's the color? RGB by values between 1 to 1000. Like 500, 999, or even 1000, that doesn't matter. And by RGB by percentage, which should be 0 to 100. Okay. A, and again coding, and style, again color, RGB by percentage, like 10, 12, whatever comes to your mind, but it should be between 100 or even 100, no one cares. And by RGBA, and it can be anything by value or percentage, nobody cares. but A should be like between 0 to 100. It cannot exceed 100. Remember that. A should be like 0 to 100. You can also use percentages, which should be like 0 to 100 by RGBA. Okay, and so we should give a semicolon, which is a good practice. Because only when we give semicolon, it actually identifies that the page, actually the command ends. Okay, so now we have seen RGBA by percentage. Now let's see like HSL. H should always be value, which is 0 to 100. It should not exceed 100, where S and L should always be a percentage. And yeah, I don't know, like in HSL we can use SL in value. I don't know, like let's try it, but I don't know. If it's a value, then S and L can be like between 0 to 1000. I'll try it whether I can do it in 0 to 100 as well. Okay, now by HSLA, so H should always be value from 0 to 100, and S and L should always be percentage. We have checked it already. Should be 0 to 100, and A can either be percentage or value. Percentage or value, it should be like 0 to 100. You cannot add A more than 100 even though if it is a value. We can test that A can be a percentage as well. So these are the basic uh, chances that you can add color to your HTML document. So now let's see them all. Let's open rainbows. So how to change colors in HTML by name? So we have changed by name, which is absolute beginners coding. We have used the name. Now let's open it. Okay. So how to change by name? We can write the name of the color red, and here we can see absolute beginners coding in red color. How to change the colors in HTML by name. So now let's see how to change by hex. We can type the value of the hex, which is again the value of red, and you can see the words are in red color. So now let's see how to change the value, how to change the color by RGB by typing the values from 0 to 1000. Look, I have entered 500, 999,000. So actually didn't work. Why? It is actually working, but the thing is that it is in white color. You can see it's working actually, but it is in white color. We can actually use the value 0 to 1000, that doesn't matter in RGB, but the value I have entered is in white color, so that's the reason you couldn't able to see. But when I'm highlighting it, you can see. So you can also enter the value. How to use the RGB with percentage? If you are using percentage, then it should be like 0 to 100. So by RGB by percentage 0 to 100, you can see I have mentioned the percentage like between 12 to 100. So you can get the answer here in dark blue. So how to change the color by RGBA? By using only values. So you can see that I have used only the values 0 to 1000. RGB can be like 0 to 1000, but A should be like between 0 to 100. I can get the value here, like which is in a sky blue. Now how to add RGBA only by using percentages? It should be like between 0 to 100, so you can get the result like here. So now let's see how to change the color by HSL, which is hue, saturation and lightness. H should always be in a value, it should not be in a percentage. It should be like 0 to 100, but S and L can be in percentage or it can be in values. So now we have seen in percentage it's working actually, so the color is changed. Now by values it's not working. So we come to know that in HSL, S and L should not be in a value, it should always be in percentage, so it will not work. So I'm gonna remove this because it will not work. I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna refresh the page. Now you can see HSL, H should always be in value and S and L should always be in percentage. Even in HSLA, H should always be in value 0 to 100 and S and L should always be in a percentage, and A should always, it can be like either percentage or value, because you can see that in this HSLA I have used H as a value, A as a percentage, I mean S and L as a percentage and A as a value again. In even this HSLA I have used H as a value because it should always be remaining in a value. S and L should be always in a percentage and A can be in a value or percentage, because we can see that here even I'm using in a percentage I'm getting the output, even I'm using the A as a value I'm getting the output. So this is the various types you can actually use, guys. So to change the color you can change it by name, by hex, by RGB values, by RGB percentage, by RGBA value or RGBA percentage, by HSL percentage or HSLA percentage. But A could be value or percentage, doesn't matter. So this is how you can actually change the colors in HTML. Nobody has ever given such a detailed explanation in the history of YouTube or Facebook or Twitch tutorial on colors alone, but I have given you guys. I have spent like more than 2 hours on the colors alone. So let's move forward, and yeah, let's move forward. So now let's see how to add CSS in HTML. How to add CSS in HTML. Let's see it right now. Okay, so there are like 3 types you can actually use the CSS in HTML. One is like inline. So this is what we were using the whole time. So this is an example of how to add CSS in inline. So this is called as inline CSS. The second one is internal CSS. So how to add an internal CSS? If you want to add an internal CSS, what we can do is next to the HTML you can add style here, but let me like show it in a different document, new tab. So let me like show you how to add an internal CSS. Internal CSS, how to add. Let me like show it to you. So first we have to create a doc type of HTML and HTML. Okay. Now within this I'm gonna create a head. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add style. Okay, so now this is how I can actually use the internal HTML. So what I can do is I can change the color like on here without going to the main body. So what I'm going to do is let me like go to the body. So inside the body I'm creating a paragraph. So let me write copy the one like what's inside the Wikipedia. So let me like copy the first paragraph right here and like copy as a plain text. This is what inside my paragraph, right? So now how to change the style of this? While we have already practiced how to use the inline CSS, like this is how to use the inline CSS, because we have directly inserting style in the line we have to change. This is how to change the inline CSS. But how to change the internal CSS? Next to the head we are adding an additional tag line which is style, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna name the body here and we're gonna use the parenthesis here and we're gonna tell what color of the body should be. Like what's the color? Like red. So instead of writing it in here, we can directly write here. So this is how to change the color. And if I'm adding another one, like after P, if I'm adding a or a H1, let's see what I can do. I can actually do the same for anything. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to copy this as well. Okay, let me like okay. Let me use the PR here. Okay, let me like save it. Okay. HTML or HTML, both are same. You can use either. So this is an internal HTML, guys. Instead of adding an inline, I'm going to the header and I'm adding an additional tagline here, like style. And below that, what I'm doing is I should actually use another one. Okay, now everything is good. Okay, I'm gonna mention the body. I'm adding the color here, and I can also add the background color. Doesn't matter. Which is aqua, and I can also use border if I want, which is 2 pixels solid allow. This is what we can do, and this is h1. So we are using the parenthesis again, and we can do the similar one here as well. The color can be like tomato, and I'm giving a semicolon, and background color it can be like marine, and border it could be like of solid purple. So, and again I can use it for the A as well. Color is violet, background color is green, and the border is 2 pixels solid silver. So this is the internal CSS, how to add an internal CSS. Let's see it. Okay, so the first thing is I've turned the body background into blue, so that's the reason everything is in blue. So I'm gonna take it out. So now everything will be in normal color. Let me like refresh it. So you can see that the color of the body what I've given is red. So everything inside the body has turned into red, and you can see that the border what I've given to the body is yellow, solid 2 pixels. So everything has a border of 2 pixels. Okay, so if I take the body out, you can actually see what's happening to the rest of the page. Okay, instead of body I'm gonna give P. So I'm going to the same page. So you can see that for the P I have given the color red, background color is aqua, and border is 2 pixels. I'm going to change into like 5 pixels so that it will be like more vibrant. Okay, now you can see it's 5 pixels right now. So this is what happens to the P inside the body, and this is what happens to the H1. Now this is what happens to the A. Yeah, this is what happens to the A. So the color is violet, background is green, border is like 2 pixel of silver, so it's really light, and the rest is A. color is tomato. I mean, the rest is h1, the color is tomato, background is marine, border is purple. So this is the internal CSS. This is how to add an internal CSS. So the CSS should be added by typing the tagline style and backslash tagline style, and everything should be inside that. So how to add an external CSS? So we should create a separate CSS file. What we have to do is we have to create a HTML file. DOCTYPE HTML and another HTML and another HTML, and I'm gonna add the head, and I'm gonna add the head again, and inside that head what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another tagline, which is a link, and I'm gonna type rel, which is relative path, rel equal to a style sheet, and then I'm gonna give the href, which is equal to the name of the file, which is a CSS file. So for that I have to create a CSS file. So I'm going to just name this blank file as a CSS file. So this is the name of this file, coloring.css. So I'm going to add the link to coloring.css. And whatever I does in the CSS will reflect in this HTML page. This is the external CSS, how to add an external CSS. So I'll show you an example of that right now. So head, in the head what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm going to write a body. Okay, inside the body I'm having a P, which is a paragraph. I'm gonna say apple is the best fruit, and other than that I'm gonna add a, see, I love banana very much. This is another great example. I want to save it. Let me like save it as external me.html. So what I'm going to do is I have linked the coloring.css. So I'm gonna go here. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna give colors to the P and A from another CSS file. Okay, I'm gonna give the color red, and background color blue, border is 5 pixel solid yellow. This is what I'm doing here, and then A, so similarly we can do it. Okay, change like tomato, aqua, green. So let's save it. So now what happens is, if I'm opening the file external me, the styling what I've applied in the CSS file coloring will be applied to the HTML over here. So you can see that I haven't entered any internal, inline or internal CSS in this file. It's just the blank HTML document, but I've linked to the external file, which is coloring.css, to this. So when I open this file, the coloring files, which is coloring CSS files, styles will be implemented in this file. So let me open the external me file right now. Okay, see, the coloring has been implemented from the coloring file, because here I didn't add any internal or inline CSS. It has been taken from the external CSS. So this is the 3 types how to add CSS in your HTML. One is inline, which is like this. Another one is internal, which is like this, adding a style and below the header and doing the same. And the third one is external. So inline, internal, and external. So this is how you add CSS to your HTML. So let's move on to the next topic right now.